Did Jesus really exist? 2,000 years ago, that question wouldn't have been asked. It would have been asked because Jesus simply was alive and he was well in a small village in the land of Israel. Had you seen him for yourself, you most likely would have considered him to be a very average-looking Jew. But he was certainly anything but average. He spoke like no other spiritual teacher ever had. He proclaimed himself to be the Son of God. He forgave people's sins while he was on earth. He foretold his own death, and he performed verifiable miracles that even his enemies couldn't refute. His life and death and resurrection were so powerful that he started a movement which remains in existence and continues to spread across the globe 2,000 years or so after it started. Since millions of first century Jews lived, died, and faded away, just the fact that we're even wondering if Jesus exists says something about the truth that he did. But now let's get to the heart of the question. You see, there are some people today that have determined to deny and reject all things that bear any hint of the spiritual or supernatural. And for this reason, many of them not only claim that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, but they claim that he never even lived on earth. With all due respect, this accusation simply is nothing short of wrong. Jesus' life is one of the most historically documented lives in all of ancient history. Any person who wanted to discover the truth about Jesus' life could begin by looking at the books of the New Testament. When we turn to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the book of Acts, and the epistles that were written by Paul, we see that they talk about, they focus on, they center around the personality and teachings of Jesus. But some people look at these books and they want to claim that you can't use those to prove that Jesus lived on earth because they're biased, because these books were writing in favor of Jesus. Well, this claim fails for two reasons. Number one, the writings of the people who are claiming that you can't use biased writings, well, their writings are biased. And so would they say we could throw out their writings because they're biased? Sauce good for the goose is good for the gander. They would not think that their writings should be thrown out, and yet they say you should throw out the New Testament documents. Simply not a tenable position to be in. And second, the New Testament documents are, even from a secular point of view, the most historically reliable documents ever penned in the first century. World-renowned archaeologist Nelson Gleck once said, "It may be stated categorically that no archaeological discovery has ever controverted a biblical reference. Scores of archaeological finds have been made which confirm in clear outline or exact detail historical statements in the Bible." You see, the Bible is accurate history, and it documents the life of Jesus Christ at length. You know what, though? Even if you didn't have the Bible, although we do, and it would carry the weight of the case by itself, even if you didn't have those documents, we would still be able to establish the fact, the historical fact, that Jesus Christ lived. A man by the name of Josephus, he was a well-known Jewish historian. He mentions Jesus twice. He wrote about a man named James, the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ. Additionally, the Roman historian Tacitus wrote in regards to the originator of Christianity. He said Christ had been executed in Tiberius's reign by the governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate, which is virtually the exact same statement that the New Testament documents make. Now notice how Tacitus marked the life of Jesus. He marked it by the emperor of Rome time period and the governor of Judea. Now, what are we saying? That's exactly how a Roman historian who would be writing historical information down would have documented the life of a Jew living in the first century, by the certain period of this Roman emperor and by the period of the governor of Rome that was there in Judea. You see the situation there. That's not overblown writing. That's not biased in favor of Christ. It's just simple, historical, accurate writing. There was another Roman official by the name of Pliny the Younger. He wrote in about AD 110. In a letter to the Emperor Trajan, he mentioned Christ 3 times. There again, Romans simply mentioning the life of a first century Jew. No, make no mistake about it. Jesus lived on earth. There's no serious question from any historical view about that. In fact, just notice the calendar. What do the years 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, what do those mean? Well, the letters AD stand for the Latin terms Anno Domini, meaning in the year of our Lord. All time revolves around the fact that Jesus lived. Jesus was a historical figure who lived in first century Palestine. His faithful followers died martyrs' deaths because they preached that Jesus lived and that he rose again and ascended into heaven. Oh, he lived on earth, and he still lives today in heaven, and he's waiting to return and take his followers back to heaven with him. Will you be one of those followers who understands the historical reality of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, and understands the future reality that Jesus Christ will be here once again to take his faithful back to heaven? Make no mistake, Jesus lived, and he's coming again. Will you be ready?